Good evening, I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, Big Brother is watching you, literally, with a drone and without rules. Today, FBI Director Robert Mueller admitted it under questioning from Senator Chuck Grassley during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing.
Does the FBI own or currently use drones, and if so, for what purpose?
Yes, and for surveillance.
I think I can assume, since you do use drones, that the FBI has developed a set of policies, procedures, and operational limits on the use of drones, and whether or not any privacy impact on American citizens.
Well, we are in the initial stages of doing that, and I will tell you that our footprint is very small. We have very few and have limited use, and we're exploring not only the use but also the necessary guidelines for that use.
And Mueller made it clear this is happening on American soil. Now, the FBI already acknowledged using unmanned surveillance aircraft earlier this year to monitor a specific situation. You may remember it, where that little boy was being held hostage in a bunker in Alabama. But you heard Mueller say, from what he said, there were other times, seldom, but other times. So we don't know how often these drones are being used or to do what, or whether your rights are being violated. Out front tonight, Republican Senator Rand Paul. He sits on the Homeland Security Committee. Senator, good to see you. Are you surprised?
Well, I wish I could tell you that I was surprised. I am a little concerned that we're going to use the drones and then we're going to develop rules for them. The most important rules for the use of surveillance are basically the Bill of Rights. You have to have a search warrant to use a drone to go after someone. Now, some of this is murky because we've had some decisions by the courts saying that open spaces don't require a warrant. I disagree with those cases and think we need to revisit that. But particularly if they're using drones, they need to have a judge's warrant.
Now, you've been critical, obviously, at the least, I guess. I think you'd agree with my characterization of the administration and its surveillance programs and the recent revelations about the NSA and others. You've said you want to sue the government over them. But I wanted to just, back in 2007, you're well aware, then Senator Obama was very loud in his criticism of President Bush and surveillance programs. He said the Bush administration put forth, quote, a false choice when it came to liberty versus security. But today, when he was speaking in Europe, President Obama defended his administration's surveillance programs, and I wanted to play you his reasoning.
I came in with a healthy skepticism about how our various programs were structured. But what I have been able to do is examine and scrub how our intelligence services are operating, and I'm confident that at this point we have struck the appropriate balance.
All right, he obviously changed his point of view somewhat when he got into office. All of a sudden, when you're the president, terrorist attack happens, it's yours. It's your responsibility. Former Vice President Dick Cheney was actually criticizing you when you were so frustrated with their surveillance program, saying, look, surveillance programs would have prevented 9/11. You could be running for president. Do you think you'd feel differently if you were in the Oval Office?
I think there's a saying that most people know that power corrupts. And I think a lot of times when people get elected to be the president of the United States, they think, well, my predecessor was a bad person and he might have misused this, but I'm a good person and I will never misuse this power. Really, it's about the power. It isn't about the person. Madison talked about this when he said if a government were comprised of angels, we wouldn't need to limit power. I'm a big believer that power corrupts even the best of people, Republican or Democrat, and that's why we limit how much power we give to the executive. And so, no, I think you do accept the restraints of the Constitution because that's how we protect freedom.
Plus,
so
there were I was just going to say there were some well-known angels that became pretty corrupted. But, I mean, but, it has been said, Senator, that terrorists only have to be right once, right, to do something absolutely horrific that changes the course of history. The government has to be right every single time in order to prevent the loss of life. Are you confident you could be right every time as president without these surveillance programs?
Yeah, I don't think anybody can be perfect. We could put DNA chips under everybody's skin. We could stamp the back of everybody's forehead. We could put cameras in everybody's house. We'd still get attacked, but we wouldn't have freedom. So I think you can have freedom and security. And if you'll listen closely to the Intelligence Committee, not one of these people couldn't have been caught with the traditional judge's warrant, because they're always saying and other devices. almost every instance of catching a terrorist, we got a terrorist name and we looked and traced their phone calls. We're not randomly getting anyone's name. We are getting the names through good police work. I think we can have freedom and security.
An interesting point. Now, what about what happened yesterday when the NSA chief, General Alexander, testified? He was asked by Representative Mike Rogers about whether authorities could, he was euphemistically saying flip a switch and listen to phone calls, not just track who's calling who, but if they think something's happening, actually just listen into that call. Here's how he answered that direct question.
Does the technology exist at the NSA to flip a switch by some analyst to listen to Americans' phone calls or read their emails?
No.
So the technology does not exist for any individual or group of individuals at the NSA to flip a switch to listen to Americans' phone calls or read their emails.
That is correct.
Senator Bob Baer, former CIA agent, was on this show yesterday and said he questioned that. They have the ability. He said it may not be literally flicking a switch, but it is the ability to listen. Do you believe what General Alexander said?
Well, the thing that's kind of dumb about that conversation is we do have the ability to look at individuals' email, but they are saying to look at the content, they have to get a warrant. Now, is it a switch or is it a line of computer code that's typed in? Something is done to read those emails because they can, and they admit they can read your emails and listen to your phone calls with a warrant. Now, they say they're only doing it with a warrant, but there is a bit of a credibility gap because they also were dishonest with us when they said they weren't collecting any data on Americans. Turns out they're collecting 1 billion phone calls data every day. So there is a bit of a credibility here, and I don't know how we regain trust from the Intelligence Committee when the Director of National Intelligence has now admitted to frankly lying to a U.S. Senator and to a committee.
Thanks very much to Senator Rand Paul. And still to come.